Hey, and welcome to AirWaves. My name is KeyAnder Early, and I serve as the recording secretary for TWU Local 556. And it is a pleasure to be here with you today because guess what? I'm going to be covering a hot topic with the one and only Jannah Dalak. She serves on the Fatigue Review Committee, and we're going to talk about fatigue. All the things you've been dying to know, all the things you've been wondering about, and also killing some of the myths and how you can fly safe this summer. All right, Jannah, you're on the Fatigue Review Committee, and flight attendants always have questions when it comes to fatigue.
They
So,
do.
first, what are signs of fatigue? What does it look like?
So fatigue can look like so many different things to everybody. It can be emotional, it can be cognitive, it can be behavioral. It can affect everyone differently. So it's really up to the flight attendant to determine if they feel that they are unsafe to perform their duties because of fatigue. They have to be the one to make that decision.
Okay. I don't know, I had like a short layover, didn't get much rest. Things are kind of, I don't know, just not feeling myself. Can that sometimes kind of be, fatigue, or can fatigue sometimes just with how we're just truly feeling?
Well, sure, because it can affect you in so many different ways. If you don't feel 100% and you're going to go to work and you might not remember all your procedures, you might mishear communications. There's so many things you're responsible for in that airplane. You have to make sure you're 100%. So it has to be you to make that decision.
Okay. So say I'm not feeling my best. I feel like, you know what, guys, I talk to my other crew members. I'm like, I'm just not, I'm off. Something's not right. I'm messing up the demo, just different things. What is it that I need to do? What does that look like?
So first of all, you need to make sure your issues are because of fatigue, because you certainly wouldn't want to be ill or something like that and utilizing a fatigue call. But the first thing you would do if you don't feel like you can complete your duties safely, then you would contact scheduling and report fatigued, and they would assign you a hotel room where you would receive 11 hours of uninterrupted crew rest. And then you want to make sure within 72 hours that you're going to complete that fatigue report. And there's a whole process after that where the fatigue review committee will go in and look at the contributing factors, and we look at we do a 7-day look back to see what was going on in your life and what your schedule was, and you can have operational factors or you could have non-operational factors that caused your fatigue, and we're going to evaluate all that because we have to determine the root cause. And once we could determine the root cause, then we can tell if it's operational or if it's non-operational, because you could have just not received enough sleep at home before your trip. Of course, that's not operational, but you still can utilize the fatigue policy for that.
Okay. So when I write the report,
Mm-hmm.
putting that information, like you said, a 7-day look back, and I guess it's going to ask me what have I been doing those past 7 days, and including things that I feel like may not be operational related, but like you said, that actually may contribute to how I'm feeling. Is real important for you all to be able to support us.
It is.
Now, you mentioned that when we call fatigue, we'll be sent to the hotel. I'm assuming wherever we are for 11 hours uninterrupted rest. And then the next day,
So you're required to call back scheduling, and they can assign you, or they can try to get you back on your trip. They can ask you to sit reserve, or if they have nothing for you, they'll just release you and deadhead must ride you back to your domicile.
okay. So knowing that I can be working another trip, or headed back to domicile, or sitting, is just knowing that afterwards, I'm put back in and ready to go to work.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You will contact them after 11 hours. They'll tell you when to contact them, and then they will let you know if they have anything else for you or if you're released.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what if I'm feeling really nervous about this? You know how calling out sometimes takes a toll on us. You know, points rolling off. What is your suggestion? when it
So,
comes to this, and knowing that we're always concerned about our points?
right, right. It's a voluntary safety reporting program that's approved by the FAA, and it's non-punitive. If your fatigue is related to operational, then your report will be considered for compensation, and you would not be affected with record improvement. If it is non-operational, let's just say you didn't get enough rest the night before. Your neighbor was having a party, or there down the street there was an event going on, and you didn't get enough rest before you went to work. That is going to be deemed non-operational. So in that situation, it wouldn't be compensatory, and you wouldn't be allowed to record improve if that were the case.
Okay.
But it is a non-punitive program.
Okay. And I know you mentioned before that there's a committee that goes through these. You said 7 days and talk about these things. Can you tell me a little about the committee?
Sure. The In-Flight Fatigue Review Committee is made up of company representatives and the union. And we have safety and regulatory leaders at the company. We have base ops, we have schedulers, and they make up the company side. And then for the union, there are 4 of us. There's myself, I'm a co-chair with the Safety Health Security Committee, and there's Xander Ricker. He's a domicile executive board member for Denver. He's also scheduling co-chair. And there is Mark Torres, same thing, scheduling co-chair. He used to be a domicile board member, and he's also a negotiator. And then now we have Chase Goldman, and he's a scheduling representative. And then Michael Massoni, who negotiated the language the LOA back in 2018, he sits in on meetings now because he's familiar with the language. And as of the last contract, our language was codified in Article 25, Section 16.
Great. And I love that addition
Yes.
that we had with this contract and the hard
Absolutely.
work that went into just getting us to where we are. We are realizing that our safety is a priority for ourselves, the company, and our customers as well.
Absolutely.
So tell me this. I know you like to fly red eyes. Red eyes
do.
are something that is still fairly new to us. So with flying red eyes, what are some of your thoughts on fatigue and things of that? Are there any tips or things of that nature that you would love to share with other flight attendants who are thinking about it, or they did a red eye and kind of, don't know how they kind of feel about it?
So we have 2 of us on the in-flight fatigue review committee that fly red eyes all the time. And actually, I think Xander and Chase do them as well, but Mark and I do them regularly. And it's different for everybody. I always talk to all the crews and ask them, is this your first time? Sometimes you get reserves or new flight attendants that, they're worried. I've never done one before. You just have to pace yourself and figure out what works best for you. The people that I know don't do much on the red eyes. They get their rest, stay in their room. You're going to have 30 hours in maybe San Diego or Las Vegas, and you might be tempted, but you just really have to focus on getting your rest. I travel with a blackout sleep mask and these earplugs that I swear by. They're great. And you just have to, a lot of people take naps. I'm not a napper, so I just rest in my room. And it's definitely a type of flying that doesn't work for everybody. But the diehard PMers, I can do AMs or PMs, but I really like the red eyes. It's just something different. We haven't had it very long.
Yes. So I know still excitement and it's still kind of that about it. So great to hear that from you. And then I really think it's great to know that you are a line flying flight attendant.
Yes.
That is serving on the fatigue committee with others who also fly the line. So definitely understand what fatigue can look like and also what are some things to help mitigate fatigue. So
Right.
thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So you mentioned earlier about our contract and how with the
Mhm.
pink contract, we were able to get some additional language when it comes to fatigue. So
Right.
could you share a little bit about that for us?
Sure. The language that was incorporated into the pink contract is Article 25, Section 16. It talks about if your report is going to be operational, and the protections are it's non-punitive, it's a safety reporting program that's voluntary, and there's nothing punitive about that. You need to, if you are tired and you cannot perform your duty safely, it's very important that you call out fatigued. It's nothing to be intimidated or scared about. I know there's a lot of flight attendants at Southwest. Probably you and I both, we started here and there was no fatigue policy. And, we pushed through. We had no option. But we're so blessed to have this language now. And it's important that we utilize it for the proper reasons. It's definitely not a program, a self-scheduling program that if you're assigned a round trip or rescheduled, it's nothing like that. It is strictly for safety purposes when you cannot complete your duty safely.
Yes. And with that, had a long trip
Hmm.
and was driving home, made a stop, knew I shouldn't have stopped. Something was like, Kendra, just go home. You're extremely tired. Literally rear-ended a car that was just sitting there. Just not it was literally, I was just that fatigued of where I saw but couldn't respond.
Hmm.
Just all the things. I was like, oh my gosh. So I've had that experience in my 22 years of just pushed and went a little bit too far than
Hmm.
I probably should have. Now, with that, what are some of the myths? I know you touched on things like the misunderstandings or some of the myths
Hmm.
that you've heard or that you like to clear up for flight
So
attendants.
a situation like that, it would be really important that you just include as much detail as possible in your narrative and in your contributing factors, because it could be different if you're going to work or you're coming home from work. Um, I would say, it's possible that coming home from work, your long duty day of 15, 16 hours um, affected that, and maybe you have a trip after that, right? Back to back trips. There's so many factors that can come into play. We just need as much information as possible to determine the root cause of your fatigue. Was it you didn't get good sleep the night before, or was it coming home from the trip and you had a 15-hour duty day or whatever it may be? We just really have to determine what that root cause is so we can determine, the outcome of the report. And then what happens is the event review committee, when we meet twice a month, and we go over every single report as soon as they come into the queue. But if the committee does not come to consensus on a report, then we'll discuss it in our meeting. But then it will actually, if we cannot come to resolution, then it goes to base leadership for a decision. And then the flight attendant would find out the outcome of their report through their Southwest Winco email. And other than that, you probably wouldn't hear anything else about it. You might, if we needed more information, but that's why we stress that you need to provide as much information as possible, because it's really hard to get a hold of flight attendants, right? And if we have to reach out for more additional information, it just takes more time, and there is that 72-hour time frame where you need to fill out that report. Once you have your fatigue call, you have 72 hours to complete that report for it to be considered for compensation.
Okay. And I'm really glad that we're having this conversation now because, as you and I know, in the summer months,
Hmm.
flight attendants tend to pick up a lot more.
Hmm.
Productivity pay is offered. When you mentioned back-to-back pairings, and I'm sure that was probably what was happening, where I felt like getting off this trip. I need to
Hmm.
go and do this because the next day I'm getting right back on the jet heading out.
Hmm.
And so I think it is important, like you point out, like being mindful of those back-to-back trips as well,
Hmm.
trying to do a lot, the things that may prohibit us. And so what are some things that we could possibly do in between, which would have been maybe not running the errand in
Yeah.
my case?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's a great question, because we encourage flight attendants have to pick up extra, right? Most of us do. And a lot of us do pick up back-to-back trips. I pick up back-to-back red eyes too. And you allow yourself, I always allow myself plenty of time. And most flight attendants do too. But especially in the summer, you're going to have IROPS, right? And we have storms and whatever that may be, mechanicals. And if you left yourself 15 hours between trips and then something happens on that first trip and you go down to 12 hours, let's say, that's not anything that you can control, but that's very important. And that's why people like Mark and Xander and Chase are so good on the committee, because they look at all those fine details and they can say, well, look at this, and we can point that out to the company. This flight attendant allowed 15 hours and they only got 12 hours because of IROPS. And that's going to make that report lean operational, because the company doesn't want to discourage flight attendants from picking up. They rely on us to pick up. So that's a great question.
Yes. Oh, yes. And what would be some things you'd recommend? I know you mentioned getting enough sleep. I know a lot of us try to drink a lot of water. Just, are there some things that perhaps we can do while we are on the jet or in between that could help maybe
Right.
fight some
And that's
fatigue?
another good question. So there's so many factors in aviation that we can't control, right? So just like in your day-to-day life, you're going to want to get as much rest as possible, eat healthy. Don't, have too much caffeine, don't have too much alcohol, get some exercise. All these things are very important, not only in your day-to-day life, but also very important when you go on the road, because there's so many factors that you can't control. Just focus on what you can control and just do your best.
I love it. And so, as always, I know the members can reach out to the union if they do have some questions in those moments. And then I also know that they're able to reach out to yourself or the committee as well for any
Right.
support that is needed. And I really appreciate and thank you so much for everything that you do and the work. And again, just so everyone knows, having line flying flight attendants being the ones who work with the company to support what it is that is necessary when it comes to reviewing the fatigue. So thank you, Mark, Xander, and Chase for all the work that you do, as well as Michael Masoni, with getting us to where we are with this.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
a
you for having
pleasure.
us today.
Aw.
And anybody can always reach us out. We have an email, fatigue@twu556.org, and we're always happy to help anyone. Always willing to talk about the questions and provide guidance.
Awesome, awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you, Jannah.
Thanks, KeyAnder.